Today we're going to do one of our interviews with one of our cherished speakers, Anthony Abbagnano, who is the founder of the Alchemy of Breath, been recently extremely popular because of numerous people in the modern media, people like Wim Hof, who you might have heard. I have the greatest respect for Anthony and what he has to share with you, and today he's even going to share one of his breathing techniques, which if you do it with him, will give you this wonderful feeling of calm and give you just a taste of what you will have on the 11th of February 2022 at our online event. So Anthony, thanks for joining us. So I was wondering if you could share with us today what you'll be talking about and tell us a bit about how you got interested in what it is you're going to be talking about.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just so grateful to be in your presence again. It's been 2 years, I think, since we had the last convention in London, and I think we've all missed things in this period. We've all experienced some degree of lack. And I want to speak to that as to what I want to bring to this session today. But first of all, what brought me here? I think I am a specialist in the use of the breath, and we use the breath in all sorts of different ways to modulate, and have beneficial effects on our psyche, on our physical condition, and definitely on our perspective of the world, because we often forget that our perspective is affected by all the stressors that we receive in our lifetime. So my work with the breath started inadvertently when I was about 10 years old, and a kid put a paper bag in front of my face and told me to breathe into it 20 times and then let me down to the ground very gently. And I was so struck by the experience that it became compelling to me. And I met it again as a young father at the age of 18. I was learning the Lamaze breathing method and the Le Boyer breathing method for childbirth, and so we would practice every day. I would coach my wife, and of course was there at the birth to do the same thing as well. And so I never knew that I would end up getting involved in it professionally, but this and other experiences along the way, eventually one day the penny dropped, and I thought, well, I would have never ever imagined that I would end up becoming involved professionally with the breath. But I think the reason that I did was because I was continually seeing the profound difference that it makes, not just in my own life and my own life experience and how to greet different situations in different ways, but also to see how it changed other people. And my work with, I founded Alchemy of Breath, and our primary outreach consists of a conscious connected breath, which means that we never stop. We just go in and out, and a bit like a violin solo, or imagine a wave coming onto the shore, that it's always making a sound. And that is what's known as a conscious connected breath, and that had its roots back in the last century, in the 60s and 70s, with Leonard Orr and Stan Grof, and has now evolved into something more, I would say, more widespread, and also more, has a larger agenda. There are many ways that you can use this breath, but dive into the psyche in some way to understand problems or stresses or conditions that we possibly can't understand with our normal thinking mind. And actually this conscious connected breath reduces oxygen flow to the frontal lobe. And so therefore we start to think with more of our being. It sounds a bit simplistic when I say that to a doctor, but we do know that 20% of the messages go from the brain downwards and 80% are coming up the other way. So then it begs the question, well, what about that 80%? You know, how can our minds learn from our bodies? How can we become more embodied? And how can we receive the signals from our body earlier on than when we finally get the headache or we get the chronic disease or however the problem may manifest. So it's a journey about understanding the body in a different way and also using it as a resource to teach us things. So that's the conscious connected breath, which is perhaps the most striking that we use, because just 10 of those connected breaths can leave you feeling quite different than you do now. Of course, I advocate breath consciousness, so it's by no means restricted to that one breath pattern. I'm interested in discovering new breath patterns all the time. You may have heard of something called the Coherence Breath from the HeartMath Institute in California, which is a breath that increases heart rate variability, which is, in simple terms, our heart's ability to respond to different situations. And it's just one of many. I mean, I have a little book with 36 or 37 different breath practices, and I keep inventing them every day. What I wanted to bring today to you folks is a breath that I've been using for the last 3 or 4 years for anxiety, because especially during this last period of time when people have had their lives disrupted and stilted in one way or another, there seems to be an increasing level of anxiety. And as a result, then we begin to respond to the world in a different way. We respond to each other in a different way. It's been a trying time for many in their personal and intimate relationships, in their work relationships, all relationships, because we haven't been able to maintain them in the way that we normally would. And so when we learn to live with anxiety as our tenant, if you will, it's a sitting tenant, it's one that doesn't want to go away. And once we've accepted that cycle of general anxiety disorder that we live with, it becomes our new normal. And that means that we're on edge all the time. We're ready to kick out those hormones or chemicals like cortisol and epinephrine and adrenaline, and so we're on edge all the time, and that makes us become more on edge. It's not a static thing. It just seems to get more extreme until we get to stages of panic, and then the body symptoms become so strong that we can't control them anymore. So a breath I designed was, I call it the transformer breath, because my choice is to interpret anxiety as I call this breath the transformer breath. And that's based on an interpretation that if we assume anxiety is energy, if we kind of depersonalize it and just accept it as a powerful force, then what would it look like to transform it into something more positive, an action of some type, or a capability that we might not understand that we actually have? And this is based on a quote that Fritz Perls, he's the father of Gestalt therapy and transpersonal psychotherapy as well, and he said anxiety is enthusiasm without the breath. And then he went further and he said, if you breathe 6 times or less in a minute, 6 cycles of breath in a minute, that you cannot stay anxious. And I know this is to be true because I've tried it. And in fact, there's a story when I remember when I was in London and I had to drop off my car at Gatwick Airport, and I couldn't find it. The car rental wasn't at the airport. It was one of those things in a hotel. It was in a Hilton hotel. And I remember driving past the Hilton on the motorway and coming up to the roundabout and not seeing an exit for the hotel. So I drove back the other way on the motorway and I saw the hotel go by again. And then I got to the other roundabout at the other end and I kept going back and forth going, how can I find, I've got to, I'm running out of time. I've got to drop off the car at the airport. And so I struggled in the glove box and found the rental contract and dialed them. And there was just an answering machine. And I was thinking, well, this is ridiculous. So I was starting to get more tense and more anxious. I was going to miss my flight. I was going to miss appointments. Everything was going to go pear-shaped. And so I tried to dial 3 times. And on the 3rd time, a woman answered. And I gave her such a hard time because I was so pent up and ready to burst that she said to me, "Excuse me, sir, would you mind just breathing for a minute?" And here I was, someone who works with breath, and I was being told that I had to breathe. So here's the deal. I actually knew that as I was driving. I realized I could stop and just start breathing now and things would change. But something inside me didn't want to. It was this ugly awareness that actually I'm a bit attached to my anxiety. I call it my anxiety. It belongs to me. It's like I'm almost possessive, unconsciously possessive about this state of being because it does have hidden benefits. It has the benefit of high alertness. It makes me feel more capable. I feel like I'm in the fast lane. I feel like I can win the race. But as my nephew once told me, the rat race is over and the rat won. There's no race necessary anymore. So when I developed this breath, it was specifically with this in mind. And for someone who suffers from anxiety, we're finding this to be an extremely simple and straightforward breath. And there are actually 3 levels, but I'd love to try it with you if I can. It takes about 5 or 6 minutes. Do we have a chance to do that?
Of course.
Okay. So I need to take a breath now for starters. I'm just going to take one to start off with. And what we're going to do is we're going to count in for a count of 4, and then we're going to exhale for a count of 8. And after twice exhaling to the count of 8, we're going to extend it to 9. And then after 2 times again, we're going to extend it to 10. And we'll stop at 10 just for the case of our example today. But you can actually keep extending it. And with practice, you can get up to 30 or 40 or even 50. Slowing down that exhale, which activates our vagus nerve, our well-being nerve, and is requiring us to keep some kind of measurement of what we're actually doing. And so the measurement rather fools the subconscious, because if we're going to measure something, then we begin to lose the state of awareness we had before in favor of wanting to get it right. Right? Because we all want to get it right. So when I count in for 4 and then count out for 8, it's actually quite challenging to suddenly regulate your breath that way. And sometimes it takes a little while to get the practice because you run out of breath too early, or you've still got some left, or whatever it is, and you've got to fiddle about with it and put it back to rights on the next breath. So the first thing I want to say before we try it is to relax as much as you can and just follow the count, and know that if you fall out of line, just exhale the rest or suck in breath earlier if you need to, and just come back to the rhythm just as soon as you can. And today we're just doing a little practice, but I'm going to leave you with an exercise that will be something that you can work with, and you'll find over a period of a few days that this will become more and more easy and more natural to do as well. And just as soon as you get that first sensation of anxiety, maybe it's sweaty hands, or maybe you feel your heart beating a bit more strongly, or you can feel it in your chest, then you can immediately tuck into that little breath pattern and know that you can be safe there. You're not going to raise the hormone production any further. So we'll try it. Let me see. I'm going to count. Okay, I'm going to count with my hand, and I'm going to say inhale and exhale. And when I count, I'm going to start with the number 2, because if I say inhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, you're actually inhaling to a count of 5 instead of 4. So I'm going to be saying things like inhale, 2, 3, 4, and exhale, 2, 3, 4, and so on, just so you're not surprised when I do it, okay? So let's just take an easy breath in and out to begin with. And now we'll count in 2, 3, 4, and exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale 2, 3, 4. Going to exhale for 9, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Inhale 2, 3, 4. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Inhale 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 10. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Inhale for 4, 2, 3, 4. And exhale for 10. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there we are. Now just relax. So those first times you might have run at 7, or you might have had stuff left at 10, or whatever it is, it's not really important. What's important is to remember, not to forget. So in other words, it's not important how many times you forget, it's important how many times you remember. And that in the course that I teach on anxiety, we have an online course that I teach about it, is one of the conditions that we do the course, is that you're willing to measure differently. I think with something like anxiety, we tend to measure how far we've got to go instead of measuring how much we've actually accomplished. And if we can't acknowledge what we've done, even by just listening to this and trying it for 2 or 3 minutes as we are now, then we have no traction. We have no starting gate to begin from. So it's very important, I think, to start with acknowledgement and then to learn to measure differently. What is it that's actually different that I've done in just these few minutes, as opposed to all the stuff that I've still got on my list?
Oh, that's wonderful, Anthony. When you came to the conference, I think we did the continuous breathing, and I had quite a profound reaction to that when I think I ended up crying. I think I was probably the only one. So I don't think anyone has to worry about that, but I think I'm probably the only one in the room. Yeah. But it was quite profound. And I like this meditation as well. I think I do, not meditation, but breathing, but I say meditation because it's very meditative. And when I do my meditation, I do a lot of breath, slow breathing. And I think why I like the breath is because when you're concentrating on your breath, and when you can't quite catch enough breath, you can't think of anything else. And that's the goal really of meditation and mindfulness. And it just blocks everything else out.
I mean, I think we can breathe one breath, one cycle in a minute too, very easily. Once you practice this a few times and it gets more familiar, then I can extend for about 45 or 50 seconds on the exhale without difficulty. And I end up playing with it. You know, if I'm sitting on a train or traveling or waiting for something, I end up just playing with it. And it becomes after a few days, it becomes an automatic reaction. It's a bit like the coherence breath, which begins as being a go-to breath when you feel like you need it. But the more you practice it preventatively, the more it then becomes like a come from breath. It's just, oh, this is my normal way of being, is to be this aware of my breath. And so you then begin to count the times that you fall away from that awareness rather than you regain it. And it's, like I said, a different form of measurement altogether.
So Anthony, in February, what were you going to expand on this breath when you come and join us for a talk?
I would love to expand on it. Yeah. I mean, I would love to expand on any. I mean, there's so many different ones. I love them all, and I would love to share them as much as I can.
Thank you.
As you said yourself, the most transformative, the most instantly recognizable breath pattern is the conscious connective breath, which really kind of unplugs everything that's stuck in the system, and that includes emotions. So it's one of my great favorites. But this one that we've just explored today is also a great one for COVID. Anything that gives us discipline in our breath is useful for COVID right now, and breathing through the nose is extremely important as well. I think you have Patrick McCowan coming to this conference, don't you? Because he speaks in his book, The Oxygen Advantage, which is a little bit akin to the whole Buteyko system of breath work, where we learn to live with a little less breath than we actually want, which is a good habit for us, because then when we can't breathe, especially with a strong COVID infection, that we can be accustomed to the fact that we can breathe economically and still not feel threatened. And in fact, I know Stig Stevenson talks about in his breathology course, he's a free diver of many years, and my own experience of exploring the breath of free divers is that you begin to out-relax the tension that the body feels when it's time to breathe again. And you can even practice this now. You know, if you inhale and then you hold your breath for however long you do, and you feel that first twinge, that first urge to breathe again, it's urge as in urgency, right? It feels like it's getting urgent. And actually, if you play with it, just at least with that first twinge, we can actually out-relax that. You can just drop in a little bit more, just let your body soften a little bit more, and you can get another 2 or 3 seconds without having to breathe again. And these are all very good exercises for the psyche and for the body too.
I think I certainly find it makes you a lot more aware of your breathing and how whatever's happening around you makes you feel. And because when you feel a certain way, you change your breathing first, or I become aware of it anyway. And it's one of those things, those automatic responses we can actually voluntarily change. The diaphragm is such an interesting muscle, isn't it? We control it unconsciously and consciously.
Yeah. I mean, how fascinating that when you think of the breath as a measure of your state of being, it's a symptom of your state of being, and how wonderful that you can manipulate the state, the symptom, and actually change your state of being. You can reverse manipulate your state of being by using the breath. And I don't know of many ways that we can do that in life other than the breath. It's just, how could something so obvious and so taken for granted be so fundamental to our well-being and so profound, have such a profound effect on it?
Excellent. Thank you so much, Anthony, for your time.